You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. So much news broke this week that I started making lists, and then I made lists of lists. This you have to include. This you dare not include. Well, this you can triage. And then I kept having to update my lists as newer, bigger news broke that elbowed aside the old news that I thought was absolutely imperative to include. So I don't know where we'll wind up, but we'll give it a good try. And of course, there's the conversation. Look at it this way. Let's say you're 78 years old. You've had a distinguished career in public service. In fact, you've received the National Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian award that can be bestowed in this nation. And you know, as you go to sleep each night, that you have helped save the lives of over 7 million children. Pretty good feeling. And you've received all sorts of honors and awards, and you're proud of the work you've done, and you live in Florida, and everybody assumes, well, it's 78, you're going to retire. What do? You run for Congress, and you win. And that's my wonderful guest this week, a longtime friend, Representative Donna Shalala, a newbie in Congress after having been a cabinet secretary. And it's a hell of a conversation. And there's, of course, the surrealism corner, and there's fighting words, and all of that's coming up, but only after you and I go inside the headlines. By the time you hear this, Congressman and Chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, may well have issued a contempt citation, contempt of Congress, to Attorney General Barr, or a subpoena, daring him not to attend the hearing. God knows what will happen. So there's no use covering it because it'll break the second that I cover it. And I'm stressed, and we're all very stressed here, and we really want to hear from Mueller, and more about stress later. No, let's start with other news. Let's start with some good news this week. Yes. The Kansas Supreme Court has ruled that the state constitution protects abortion rights, blocking a 2015 state law that banned second trimester procedures. The ruling found that Kansas protections could potentially override any federal restrictions on the procedure, which is a crucial finding that could pave the way for similar challenges in other states that are trying to strictly control abortion. As I mentioned recently, more than 11 states across the Midwest and South have been passing laws that ban procedures after 6 weeks, which is when many women don't even yet know that they're pregnant. Swarthmore College is up in arms over fraternities and ought to be. Dozens of students at Swarthmore stormed fraternity houses after campus publications leaked details from a document in which members of the school's Phi Psi fraternity boasted about sexual conquest and proudly referenced sexual assaults. They referred to the rape attic and how getting girls up there and then getting them so drunk they would pass out facilitated sexual assault. 2 fraternities at the school later announced they would voluntarily disband, and the administration is investigating the situation, but women's groups and many parents are pressing for fraternities to be outlawed outright. The United Kingdom is trying a bizarre new tack in supposedly fighting crime, claiming it will help find perpetrators. If you're the victim of a crime and you report it, you must be prepared to turn over personal data from your mobile phone, laptop, tablet, or smartwatch. The police claim they have a duty to pursue all reasonable lines of inquiry, and these now exist in the devices of victims and witnesses, as well as suspects, particularly in cases where suspect and victim know each other. But this raises serious problems in sexual assault crimes, which are already underreported because victims fear being treated like the guilty parties. Privacy advocates say the police departments currently often improperly download cell phone data from people they detain without their knowledge or consent in this new zeal to follow digital trails. Under the new approach, victims and witnesses will routinely be asked to sign a form saying that they consent to the extra extracting of data from their electronic devices, which can mean text messages and emails, contacts, social media records, internet browsing history, and more. Otherwise, they're told the case might not proceed without this extra information. The groups Victim Assault Support and Rape Crisis in England and Wales, an umbrella organization for rape crisis centers, said that the consent form was a misnomer because complainants lack a full and free choice as to whether to agree. The United Nations has backed a resolution on combating rape in conflict situations, but excluded references in the text to sexual and reproductive health after strong opposition from the United States. The vote was carried 13 in favor, with Russia and China abstaining. The United States has threatened to veto the resolution, but this last-minute concession got the Americans on board, as well as the additional omission of calls for a working group to review progress on ending sexual violence. The UK, France, and Belgium all expressed disappointment at the watered-down text. In recent months, the Trump regime has taken a really hard line, flatly refusing to agree to any UN documents that refer to sexual reproductive health on grounds that such language implies support for abortions. The Japanese Imperial clan traces its lineage back to the 7th century, making it the world's oldest dynasty, if not monarchy, as well as, to some people, religion. For a very long time it was thought that the emperor was a god. But last week the current emperor, Akihito, resigned and abdicated, having gained permission from Parliament to do so via a law passed last year. The law also encouraged the government to study the possibility of allowing women born to the royal family to, caught you, not succeed to the throne, merely to remain within the imperial household after marrying. We're talking heavy-duty patriarchy here. The crown prince, who is now the new emperor, Naruhito, age 59, is married to a commoner who twice refused his proposals because she did not want to give up her career in diplomacy. Still, it was a love match, and so Masako and Naruhito have one child, a daughter, Princess Aiko, age 17, not in line for the throne. Due to the declining ratio of male imperial members, the next in line would be Nohito's younger brother, and then his 83-year-old uncle, and his nephew, who is only 12. Polls show that the Japanese people would love to have an empress, and actually rules barring women from heading lines of succession date back only to the 19th century in the Meiji era. Over the 126 generations of recorded emperors, 8 women have ruled. Of course, there's always the consideration of doing away with the concept itself of an imperial family, and at this rate, the rather fanatic traditionalists might even let that happen, rather than stain their fake tradition by a female presence. Finally, an important health story. Yes, it's about stress. An increasing body of evidence shows that the time we spend on our smartphones is interfering with our sleep, self-esteem, relationships, memory, attention spans, creativity, productivity, problem-solving ability, and decision-making skills. Phew! This is science, folks. Now a new study shows that by chronically raising levels of cortisol in our bodies through stress hormones, our phones may also literally be shortening our lives. Until recently, most discussions of the biochemical effects of smartphones focused on dopamine, the brain chemical that helps us form habits and addictions, because smartphones and apps, like slot machines, are actually designed to trigger dopamine release with the goal of making our devices harder to put down. Now it turns out that a phone's effect on cortisol is even more alarming than its effect on dopamine, since the hormone cortisol triggers physiological change such as spikes in blood pressure, heart rate, and blood sugar. Cortisol, like adrenaline, is a fight or flight hormone. It's triggered when we face danger or stress, and God knows we face danger and stress. The new study shows that our cortisol levels are elevated when the phone is in sight or nearby, or when you hear it or even think you do. This study also found that in addition to long-term health consequences, smartphone-induced stress can threaten our lives in immediate ways. Elevated cortisol levels impair the prefrontal cortex, an area of the brain critical for decision-making and rational thoughts, as well as for self-control. So, for example, texting while driving, even while knowing that's a stupid suicidal thing to do. Medical health experts suggest making the phone less stressful by turning off all notifications except for those you actually need to receive. Also, try filtering your apps. Take those you find you check out of anxiety and hide them in a folder off your home screen. You could also reduce the gimmicks on your phone and refocus it on being just a phone, and then you could go for a walk in the park. Also scientifically shown to be a stress reducer. Proven. In other words, create real-life algorithms and dance to those beats, which might actually lengthen your life. We have to take a short break here, but remember that the conversation with Representative Donna Shalala is still coming up, and before we do that, we're going to visit right away when we come back from this break, the Surrealism Corner. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
We are back again and on our way to the Surrealism Corner. You must by now have heard of Stephen Moore, the right-wing pundit whose focus is on economic issues. He's the one who founded the anti-tax Club for Growth, and he is Trump's candidate to sit on the Federal Reserve Board, which is supposedly completely independent from the government. But lately, Moore has upset even some Republicans with the sheer blatant misogyny of his remarks. I won't repeat and give airtime to them here, except for one, because actually I find it so heartening. He laments radical feminism taking over universities. In fact, he says, quote, "It is a well-established fact that radical feminism has taken over the culture, especially at the elite East Coast universities," close quote. He does go on and on, but the point here is that I didn't know we already have taken over in such a thorough manner. Isn't that terrific? So, check off the universities and soon check off the culture itself. Now you and I can both sleep better at night, assured that the earth will be safe, what with radical feminists running things. Breaking news, and it's good. Just as I was writing this, Moore has now withdrawn his name from nomination for the post. Betcha those radical feminists were behind that. Now for some surreal short news bits. Oxford University researchers estimate that under a conservative scenario where no new users joined Facebook, which seems to be happening more and more, by the year 2100, well, by then 1.4 billion Facebook users will be dead. By 2070, the dead will outnumber the living. MIT Technology Review commented that such startling truths about mortality highlight social networks' dilemma of what to do with dead people. Indeed, you can't continue to sell their data, or can you? That, after all, is how Facebook makes its gazillions. We are the product. And even Amazon hasn't yet figured out an algorithm to keep dead people still buying stuff. Lisa Birnbach, writing in The New Yorker, reported on the Most Hideous Men in New York City walking tour held by Elle magazine's advice columnist E. Jean Carroll. Carroll, who is 76 and takes no prisoners, warns at the tour's beginning, quote, "If you feel that we are about to be unfair to men, get the hell out." Apparently, she then leads her charges to a number of sites, like the Plaza Hotel, where until 1969 and women demonstrating, only men were allowed to eat lunch in the Oak Room, or Trump Tower. No comment or explanation is necessary. And St. Patrick's Cathedral and sexual predator Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, or Rockefeller Center, that's both Bill Cosby and Matt Lauer. The offices of Fox News, that's both Roger Ailes and Bill O'Reilly, and CBS headquarters on West 52nd Street, where Charlie Rose and Les Moonves committed their offenses. Carol might expand her Hideous Men tours, which now take place on the first and third Sundays of every month. Clearly, she knows there's plenty of turf for expansion. Here is a great surreal new discovery. Scientists have developed a virtual prosthetic voice, a system that decodes the brain's vocal interventions and translates them into mostly understandable speech with no need to move a single muscle. Thousands of people are reduced to painstaking means of communication, an eye blink, for example, as a result of injuries from accidents, combat, strokes, or neurodegenerative disorders like ALS, all of which can disable the ability to speak. Previously, it was necessary to have at least one muscle through which the brain could work. Stephen Hawking used a muscle in his cheek to type keyboard characters, for instance. But this new system deciphers the brain's motor commands guiding vocal movement during speech and directly generates intelligible sentences that approximate the speaker's natural cadence. So you can be completely immobilized yet able to communicate. Thanks, science. This item deserves to be in a category titled, "If our species can do this sort of miraculous stuff, why in hell are we still waging wars?" In a similar vein, far out but heartening, new research in the journal Cell found that there are some 200,000 species of virus in our planet's oceans. That's 12 times more than previously thought. The research could potentially help scientists engineer the ocean at some point to combat climate change. Go, science, go. Last, 2 notes on language. There I was, absorbed in an article about how microbial life could be delivered between different planetary systems via rocky debris like asteroids or comets, and I suddenly stumbled and fell flat over an irritating word. You know how it is when you think you're safely reading about a totally non-sexist subject, and yet you find somebody has egregiously managed to insert the patriarchy into it? Here was the quote. This scenario brings to mind the well-known theory of panspermia. If it can be proven that small, rocky objects can indeed travel between planetary systems, that would increase the chances of panspermia actually occurring, seeding the galaxy with life, even if perhaps only rarely. If the debris hit a planet with suitable conditions, then those microbes might find a happy new home. Close quote. Now, sperm is a word from the Greek word for seed, but now it's associated, well, you know, with what. And why they couldn't simply have used the word seed is beyond me. But also notice the phrase, if the debris hit a planet with suitable conditions, because if not, forget about it. So how about resting the definition on that? Suitability, receptivity, fertility. For that matter, how about a word referring to a planet's active drawing in these floating seed microbes? Something like, well, I don't know, planetary magnetism? The other language item is, of course, our weekly word from another language that can only be approximated in English with an entire sentence. This week's word is from German, and it fits those of us who cringe in phantom pain when seeing others who seem wretchedly miserable. Its empathy, perhaps overdone. The word in German is fremde Schämen. You can experience fremde Schämen, exterior shame, for someone else when seeing them in an uncomfortable or embarrassing situation. For example, whenever I see Sarah Huckabee Sanders squirm before the world media while trying to explain and defend her boss Donald Trump, knowing as she in fact does that her own lies have to follow his, I actually find myself feeling Fremdschäme for her, and she's not even my Fremde. Time for another short break, and then coming right up is my conversation with a woman who, at one point, was called Madam Secretary when she was a cabinet member, and at another point was called President when she headed various major universities in this country. And she is a mean softball player. And now you address her as Congresswoman Donna Shalala. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again. Today, the conversation is with a beloved longtime friend who is now the proud representative in the House of Congress for Florida's 27th District, which includes the city of Miami and surrounding municipalities in Miami-Dade County. Donna Shalala is the granddaughter of immigrants from Lebanon. She has served as president or chancellor of 3 major universities. She's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And she began her career in public service as one of the country's first Peace Corps volunteers in Iran. She was appointed then in 1977 by President Jimmy Carter, who tapped her to serve as Assistant Secretary for Policy Development and Research at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Then, In 1993, she was nominated by President Bill Clinton to serve as Secretary of Health and Human Services. And there she created and implemented and oversaw CHIP. I know you've heard about CHIP a lot, the Children's Health Insurance Program, of which Hillary Rodham Clinton is so proud. She worked on it together with Donna. It currently covers over 7.6 million children, and of course it's in danger from the Trump administration. Shalala also succeeded in doubling the budget of the National Institute of Health, and she secured the highest immunization rates in American history. Particularly relevant to look back on that, given the resistance to inoculations today and the growing measles epidemic as a consequence. She served longer as head of HHS than anyone else ever has in American history. In 2007, President George Bush handpicked her to co-chair with Senator Bob Dole the Commission on Care for Returning Wounded Warriors, and in 2008, President Bush selected her as the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award. She's an unapologetic feminist, and she's terrific. Here is the great Donna Shalala. Donna, Congresswoman, welcome to the program, Donna.
Thank you.
It's so amazing to have you here as a Congresswoman.
You knew me when I was nothing, Robin.
Oh, no, not you were never nothing, Shalala. That is not in your vocabulary. But I've known you through many incarnations. I knew you when you were Cabinet Secretary of Health and Human Services. I knew you when you were President of Hunter. And I knew you came to give a speech in Wisconsin when you were chancellor of the university. And then I knew you through the Miami president of the university there. And when you decided to run, I must confess, I thought to myself, we're about the same age. What, is she absolutely crazy to put herself through that? And then I thought, no, she's Donna. She's going to serve wherever she can, and she's needed now. Congratulations.
Thank you, Robin. I just got pissed off with what was going on in Washington. And I thought, I'm not finished yet. So I decided to run.
You have set a model for all us older girls. You are, I think, all the hoo-ha is going on about the young fresh women and freshmen in this class of Congress. I think you are the oldest freshman or the oldest fresh woman. Something like that.
Something like that.
And I think that's even more exciting because it gives the rest of us hope. After all, everybody gets older if they're lucky.
Yeah, I've said that it's true that I'm a freshman, but I'm not a rookie.
You damn right you're not a rookie. Wow. So how is it different? Is it profoundly different to work as part of a... I mean, you always worked across the aisle. You always worked collectively. You were loved by your staffs, but you're nonetheless going from a cabinet secretary with gazillions of dollars to work with and a staff of thousands to being a backbencher. How does that work? How does that feel?
It feels great because I get to work on policy full time. And for me, I'm sort of in heaven.
Yeah.
It's very exciting because it's very substantive. I don't have to worry about someone waking me up in the middle of the night with some crazy thing that a kid did or some sad story. And I don't have to manage people. My staff is relatively small. I have 16 people, 8 in Miami and 8 in Washington. Uh-huh. So it was a very good team, and they sort of run themselves now.
Wow. It is absolutely thrilling to me that your chameleonic self has found yet another way to serve. You are serving on 2 very important committees, one of which, given your past, is no surprise, House Committee on Education and Labor, which between its 2 subcommittees is everything from early childhood and straight through schooling, and the other one on health, employment, labor, and pensions. So you're spanning early childhood to pensions on that one. But the one I would love for you to explain to people, because I don't think most people understand the power of the House Committee on Rules. And you're serving on that one, and am I ever glad?
Well, thanks very much, Robin. The Rules Committee is the most powerful committee of Congress because it literally controls every piece of legislation that is voted upon. You cannot get a vote on a piece of legislation without it going through the Rules Committee. There are 9 Democrats and 5 Republicans, so we're not scampering for votes all the time. It's not even close. But the most important thing is it's a level playing field in which you get a chance to comment and to see every major piece of legislation. And I can offer amendments on those pieces of legislation as well as discuss them publicly. Rules is always on C-SPAN, for example. So you also get a platform to talk about issues.
Aha. So you basically vet every piece of legislation to see if it passes through the procedural rules. That's one.
Through the procedural rules, but also it's also a substantive discussion
on content.
About on content. Exactly.
My God, why doesn't everybody? Well, I guess everybody does want to be on that committee.
Actually, you have to spend a lot of time, but Speaker Pelosi asked me as a freshman to go on rules because I had broad experience.
I'll say.
And it's really been a learning experience for me because it covers every issue, from defense to foreign policy to education to healthcare. Rules will host the debate on Medicare for All, for example.
I will never forget that you came to when the great Bella Abzug died, when we lost her, and the family and close friends were sitting Shiva, which is the for listeners who don't know, the sort of the Jewish ritual that goes on for 3 or 4 days, where people gather and talk about the person who's just passed and eat, of course, and laugh and celebrate the life. And Donna came from Washington. And I remember we had a long conversation about Bella, with whom you were very close. Boy, would Bella be excited to see you in Congress.
Well, Bella would be Speaker by now.
Yes, she would. She would.
She made a decision to run for the Senate. So many people move so fast. I worry about the women that are running for president now. I realize it gives them visibility. But Bella, if she had stayed in the Congress, because no one knew more than Bella did about the rules or procedures, she would have been a great Speaker of the House.
Yes, her grasp of parliamentary procedures was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. She was
a brilliant lawyer.
Yes, she was. Is it, Donna? excuse me, I'm getting over this throat thing. Is it as partisan and bitter and vociferously so in the House as it seems from outside, or is a lot of that posturing?
Some of it's posturing, but there certainly is an edge. And there are people at the extremes that don't want to walk across the aisle. So it's up to the rest of us to find a way in which we can shape legislation in which both parties agree. And you can do it on some things. We did it on Yemen, even though the president vetoed it. Yeah, vetoed, which is immoral.
Yes.
I mean, how many more children have to die? 85,000 children have died in Yemen from sickness and from disease and from hunger. And we're complicit as a nation and as a government. And the president should not have vetoed it. He should not be supporting the Saudi effort there.
Yeah, well, he should not be doing so many things. The young'uns in the new class, which is so exciting just even to look at, the rainbow of the patina of skin color and age, and the span is really exciting. I think we're still only at 23% female. But we're getting there, and it's beginning to look like America. But the young ones, do they come to their senior mother of us all, you, for advice on surviving it?
On some issues, they're talking to me. But remember, most of the new freshmen are not young.
Right.
They had real jobs before they came to the House of Representatives. Many of the women were in the military or in the CIA or in the Defense Department, but had extensive experience before they came to Congress. So, it's a centrist group. It's misleading, and the narrative is misleading that it's very far to the left. Or socialistic. No. It actually is a very centrist group.
Yeah, but that doesn't make good copy, so...
No, it doesn't.
As you and I both know, if it bleeds, it leads in all senses of the word. Is it true... I know you've got to run, so just a couple more quick questions. Is it true that you've joined the women's softball team? Because you're very good. You did? I
did. I absolutely did. My friend Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, who's a congresswoman
yes.
In Broward County, invited me to join, and I said, absolutely.
Oh, how delightful. Because you were good at that. I mean, you were quite a jock.
Yeah, I played as a kid, of course, softball. But my coach, it was very important that my coach was George Steinbrenner, the owner of the New York Yankees.
Yeah, you think? I mean, you can't get a better kind of coach than that. So, softball champ, we better talk about some issues, yeah?
Robin, I think it's important that we're working on a number of issues. And, equal pay for equal work.
Yes.
$15 an hour wage, people that need to take off to take care of their families, family illness or having a baby, ought to be paid leave. And we've got a bill on paid leave. We're going to have a big bill on child care.
Good.
All of the issues that affect working women and support women will be passed by this Congress.
What are your priorities, Donna? I know that your district includes Miami, and I know that you're part of, I think, 10 or 11 of the different House caucuses. But what in 2 years, or let's say 4 or 6 or 8 or 10, what would you like to have accomplished?
Universal health care. Medicare for all is one strategy to get there. But first, we have to protect the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
That's more important than anything else we can do. And extending the Affordable Care Act into the middle class so that people can actually afford their health insurance. Pre-existing conditions. If you don't cover pre-existing conditions, if you don't have a cap on out-of-pocket expenses, you don't have health care.
Yep.
And all this jerking around that the administration is doing is really threatening millions of Americans who have good health insurance, but we don't want to weaken it for them.
Yeah.
That's my number one priority. And of course, the environment.
Yeah.
In South Florida, this is life or death for us.
Oh, of course.
So,
because you can sink.
Yeah. Sea level rise is a huge issue. And protecting the Everglades, clean water, building seawalls, raising streets, having pumps. The infrastructure bill, which I hope will be bipartisan, will be critical to our investments in the environment in the future.
You got to protect Florida. You know that you're representing not only the state, but the district in which I was born?
I did not know that.
I was born in Lake Worth, Florida. Yeah, so there you are my congresswoman of birth. Even though Jerry Nadler is my congressman of present, and doing a fantastic job, doing a wonderful job.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome.
And Nita Lowey is now chairing appropriations. I mean, look at these chairs.
I know, and Maxine.
They are people, and Maxine Waters. I mean, these are incredible people who are feminists and
Yes.
deeply committed to equal opportunities in our country for minorities, for women, for immigrants, for the LGBTQ community. And that's the final point I want to make. We have passed the Equality Act to give the LGBTQ community the same rights that we gave African Americans in 1964 in the Civil Rights Act.
Right.
I believe that bill will pass the Senate. It will be a historic day when it does.
Wow. I mean, you think the Senate will wake up?
I do. I believe we have bipartisan support. Let's wrap up with that, because those are the fundamental rights that we all believe in.
Well, the fundamental thing I want you to know is that a whole lot of us sleep much better knowing that you're there, and are incredibly grateful for you for going for now the second branch of government. All that's left, Donna, you've served in 2 of the 3. All that's left is the judiciary, and when you're finished with Congress, I expect you to sit on the bench somewhere.
Well, I don't have a law degree, so the only bench I could sit on is the Supreme Court, and I want Ruth Bader Ginsburg to be there for a very long time.
Well, I think it could stand 2 of you. I mean, I think, along with the other women there, just add you on. I didn't say instead of. I can think of a lot of the guys I'd like to get rid of. Thank you, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, great to talk to you, Robin.
We've got to pause for one last break, and then I'll be right back with some fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
Welcome back to some fighting words. Rather than go bonkers over Attorney General William Barr, or the carnage in Venezuela spilling over onto the rest of the continent, or so many other choices for driving one up the wall and through the ceiling, I decided do something positive, small, good, positive. Not my style to be a chirpy Pollyanna, but rolling up one's sleeves and acting to change the way things are always makes me feel better, even if it has no immediately identifiable effect, or even if it has no effect at all. So I worked for a bit with our superb president at the Women's Media Center, Julie Burton, about a new project. Now, keep in mind that the WMC publishes regular reports like the annual Women in Media Report, which is so invaluable that journalists now consider the Women's Media Center as the go-to place for analysis and statistics on sex and race, and other subjects as well. We always try to add recommendations or guidelines at the back of all reports as a kind of, so what can we do about this section? And some reports are subject-specific. For example, these are actual titles. The 10 Do's and Don'ts on How to Sensitively Interview Sexualized Violence Survivors, or Writing Rape, How Journalists Cover Campus Rape, or The Gender Gap in Coverage of Reproductive Issues, and the Women's Media Center Guide to Covering Reproductive Issues. And then there's also Name It, Change It, the Women's Media Center Guide to Gender-Neutral Coverage of Women Candidates. All of these titles, by the way, are available for free on the Women's Media Center website, which is just womensmediacenter.com. You can download them and use them as you will. But the new project we're working on is in keeping with today's very fast pace and somewhat public attention deficit disorder epidemic. It's swift, short, focused, and packed with information. It was inspired by work the WMC itself has done in the area of guides for action, and also inspired by a feminist organization in Britain called Level Up. Level Up recently won its campaign, calling for the media to change the way it reports on fatal incidents of domestic violence. The UK's two leading press regulators, IPSO and Impress, are adopting the guidelines. That's in a bid to combat irresponsible reporting that exacerbates the trauma for families of domestic homicide victims. The guidelines, written by Level Up coalition of academics, survivors' families, and representatives from domestic violence NGOs, suggests that there are ways of reporting that are safe and sensitive. They offer 5 tips in the Level Up campaign, and these are now going to be adopted in Britain. Think of the difference these can make. 1. Accountability. Place responsibility solely on the killer, which means avoiding speculative, quote, reasons or, quote, triggers, or describing the murder as an uncharacteristic event. You know, all of those. He was such a nice man. Homicides are usually underpinned by a long-standing sense of ownership, coercive control, and possessive behavior. They are not random events. 2. Accuracy. Name the crime as domestic violence instead of, quote, tragedy or, quote, horror, and include the National Domestic Violence Helpline at the end of the article or news report. 3. Dignity. Avoid sensationalizing language and invasive or graphic details to compromise the dignity of the dead woman or her surviving family members. 4. Equality. Avoid insensitive or trivializing language or images. And 5. Images themselves. Avoid using stock images that reinforce the myth that domestic violence is only a physical crime. All of the above constitute excellent advice, and I applaud Level Up, which was founded in 2016 by a group of feminists aiming to tackle sexism in the UK with education and activism. And I'm quite excited that there's going to be a series of WMC guides, one-pagers, for journalists and civilians, clarifying accurate language and attitude on a number of subjects: sexual harassment at work, domestic violence, domestic homicide, campus sexist violence, well, on and on. You get the point. For me, personally, the misuse of language is a constant, ongoing act of violence, with real consequences. When the anti-science friends of the fetus people refer to late-term abortion as, quote, partial birth abortion, that's a political act of violence against the woman involved and against the truth. For that matter, reporting abortion restrictions by referring to, quote, the life of the mother is a misnomer and a misleader. The phrase should be the life of the woman. It changed attitudes when, thanks to the women's movement, we all began to use the word survivor instead of victim when referring to sexual assault and domestic violence cases, unless, of course, the woman did not survive. Naturally, this honest reframing and reclaiming of consciousness through language is true not only in terms of sexism. For instance, for some time now, I've noted with concern that white people identify race only when talking about persons of color, yet we never or very rarely identify white people as such, as if white is the generic, a synonym for normal people. I don't believe in being colorblind, because in a racist society like ours, colorblindness turns out to be a denial of racism. Rather, I think it would be good if we recognized what was going on by becoming color literate, and identifying white people as such is quite a consciousness-raising experience. You know, it took 3 days before I could manage to find out any information about the ethnicity of the latest California synagogue terrorist killer, who was white male, young, and Christian, and had he been a Muslim or an African American or any other person of color, we would have known that somehow. We would have been told it immediately. All of these small changes aren't small. How we speak affects how we think and how we act. Acting differently in a climate rife with lying and chicanery is like being offered oxygen in the middle of a great smog. We'll keep you up to date on the development of the WMC Guideline Series. Now, it won't be ready for some months, but it is on the way, and it's just the kind of thing that we do. As for those troglodytes who claim this is all PC, I dismiss them with what I said years ago, that PC really should stand for plain courtesy. It could also stand for principled cognition. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live, and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's our show for today. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRobinMorgan and on Facebook at facebook.com/TheRobinMorgan. Check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book, Dark Matter, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for our show. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.